Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues and peaceful friends, welcome and thank you for joining us today for this important online presentation organized by the Middle East Group of Initiatives of Change on the theme Sustainable Rebuilding of Gaza, Challenges and Opportunities. My name is Mounir Beltaifa, former Vice President of Initiatives of Change International and currently member of the Initiatives of Change France board. And I'm honored to host this constructive conversation in a critical moment for our human history. When a city is devastated, rebuilding is never only about replacing what was destroyed. It is an opportunity to rethink how people live, how communities function, and how cities can become more resilient and sustainable in the beginning of the second quarter of the 21st century. Today, we will explore how Gaza's reconstruction could become an advanced model for sustainable urban transformation. Today, we are privileged to hear from two distinguished experts in this regard. Professor Dr. Abdelmohsen Farahat is an internationally recognized expert in environmental design, sustainable architecture, and urban planning. He holds 4 degrees, including doctorate in environmental design and planning from Virginia Tech in the United States, and has decades of experience in research, design, and academic teaching. Throughout his career, Professor Farahat has led numerous projects focusing on the integration of environmental sustainability, cultural identity, and urban resilience. His work bridges the disciplines of architecture, landscape architecture, urban planning and design. He has published more than 40 scientific research papers and has received over 13 international and local awards. Architect Ahmad-Ullah Farahat is a professional architect specialized in sustainable architecture and ecological design systems, with awareness of resilient urban development, bringing a new generation perspective. Working closely with Professor Farahat and in consultation with Gazan professionals and community stakeholders, he has contributed to the development of comprehensive architectural and urban planning proposals for the sustainable rebuilding of Gaza. Their work proposed strategies that integrate energy-efficient building systems, ecological infrastructure, culturally sensitive design, and economically viable development models. These proposals on Gaza were recognized internationally and were awarded second runner-up in a major architectural competition across the Middle East held in Dubai in November 2025. So we are deeply grateful to both of our speakers for sharing their expertise and vision with us today. Their work offers not only architectural proposals, but also a framework for thinking about how reconstruction can become an opportunity for sustainable transformation. It is therefore my great pleasure to invite Professor Dr. Abdelmohsen Farahat to begin the presentation. Professor Farahat, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mounir. I think the sound is clear, right?
Yes.
Okay. I thank very much, Mounir. I must thank John Bond, who made a lot of efforts to make this presentation possible. I also thank our committee, the Middle East Group Initiatives of Change, who gave me a lot of insights and a lot of encouragement in relation to the subject matter. I must also thank the gentleman from Gaza, Dr. Abdel Karim Gouda, Mr. Mohammed Al-Rantisi, and Dr. Yahya Al-Sarrag, who gave us also a lot of insights and information and documents that helped to make this presentation possible. Of course, I thank also Ahmadullah, my son, architect Ahmadullah, made great efforts with me in making this presentation possible. I think we can start immediately.
Yeah, please share your screen.
Yeah. Sustainable rebuilding of Gaza, challenges and opportunities.
And please put it in full screen.
Yeah, it is full screen on my side, right?
Yes, it is full screen for everybody now.
Yeah, very good. The objectives, the first objective is that we have an opportunity, although there are many challenges, but we still have, we also have a great opportunity to achieve a far better environment than the environment we had before the war. So we must aim at the optimum in this regard, not to rebuild what has been built before, because it had a lot of problems. Actually, the oppression practiced on the Palestinian people in Gaza was not only during the war, but even before the war for decades. Second objective, sustainability and self-reliance. Third one, decentralization. Fourth one, societal development and job generation. With God's willing, we will see how these all objectives are realized in the proposals. The planning, design, construction process, there are many steps. I will not go over all of them, but please notice that to the left are the physical aspects, planning and design, and to the right is the non-physical aspects, policy, economic, socio-cultural aspects. I want to emphasize that on the physical aspects, the first step is extremely important, environmental or landscape planning. And usually it doesn't get its fair share in developing countries in general and even worldwide. On the right hand, the last one, socio-cultural economic planning. Also, the socio-cultural aspects don't get their fair share in many times. Now we will talk about Gaza Strip as a whole, analysis and planning. The basic strategy for expansion is westward landfill using building rubbles. There is some chance for land exchange northward, expansion northward, according to the peace settlement that, God willing, will happen between the Palestinians and the Israelis and the existing Israeli settlements. So some land change may happen. So there is some possibility of land exchange northward and in relation to the connection with the West Bank. Now, talking about environmental planning, the most important point in relation to it is the basic green open space system. And here we are talking about productive green areas, agriculture, all kinds. And we must conserve the wadis that already exist. What is shown here are 3 wadis. And in addition to that, we have the agricultural area, the main agricultural area on the north and on the east. In addition to that, we propose a green spine in the middle of every urban unit. The basic urban unit, which is shown with dashed lines. I hope you can see the pointer. It's every 1 kilometer. Gaza coast is 41 kilometers. So a green spine inside each, in the middle of each basic urban unit. The basic routes of movement, we have already 2 north-south roads. We propose a third one on the east with railroad. And we propose 2 of them to extend to Egypt. This is in addition to the connection to the West Bank. Now, we come to the rebels. There are many challenges, and I'm sure you all aware of the tragic situation, the very tragic situation in Gaza. One of the most important challenges, perhaps the most important, is the rubble. This is in terms of challenges for reconstruction. This is an old estimate that the rebels in Gaza can make 10 great pyramids of Giza. Today, it exceeds 15 great pyramids of Giza and estimated to be 65 million tons. So one of the first steps we did, Ahmadullah and I, was to put a grid or strips of 1 kilometer wide on Gaza Strip as a whole and search for the places with the least possible rubble. So going from north to south, there are 2 potential urban units on the north, but this should be devoted almost completely to agriculture. Then there are 2 other urban units, potential urban units, immediately south of Gaza City. And then there are 5 potential urban units south of Deir al-Balah. This is near the middle of the Gaza Strip. There are additional 3 potential urban units in the very south near Rafah, but this can be considered half urban units. And in this place, the port is supposed to exist. So essentially, we have 7 urban units south of Gaza City and south of Deir al-Balah, in which construction can start almost immediately without waiting for the processing and the landfill related to the rubbles. Some estimate the treatment of the rubbles to take 3 years. But with our proposal, we can start almost immediately. Of course, immediately in relative terms. The same grid is put in relation to agricultural land existing and destroyed. And still the 7 urban units are having great potentials because most of the agricultural land is already destroyed there. Then we have the historic spots, heritage spots. These are very important, and many of us would be astonished to know that there are tens of sites, historic sites in Gaza, that must be restored and just as they were before the war. Many of them are destroyed already. The same grid in relation to environmental factors, and one of the most important environmental factors is the flooded areas during rain. And I think you all have seen videos and scenes of what happens to the tents and the flooded areas. The flooded areas are mostly to the west, but some of them are before the western coast. There are certain depressions related to wadis. Wadis in general go from east to west with the slope. The slope is going from east to west. But some wadis or tributaries can go from south to north. And these are subject to flooding. Now, if we put all the maps together, overlaid over each other, we will have this composite map. And we will concentrate on the 5 urban units south of Deir al-Balah, and especially on the middle unit, which is shown, the 5 units are shown in the blow-up and the close-up to the left, and the middle unit is what we will concentrate on. Now, if we take a section through all of Gaza Strip from east to west, we have this section at the bottom. And there are many things to be said, but the one thing we want to emphasize in this section is that with the green spines proposed by us, it should be in relation to a series of basins. These basins will absorb the drainage from east to west and will replenish underground water by rainwater harvesting. Now, if we take a close-up of the middle road, Salah ad-Din Road, we have the section at the top, and in addition to what must happen in future in relation to any contemporary main road, that is, in addition to automobiles, there must be public transportation, public transit, lanes for bicycle, generous sidewalks for pedestrians. We propose also considerably wide planted swales on the two sides of the road, again for rainwater harvesting, and in this way you can almost prevent flooding from happening. Now we shift the scale to the generic urban unit. There are a lot of calculations, quantitative information, but basically the population of the urban unit is is approximately 150,000 population or less. The landfill area can add another 25,000 populations. So with the 7 urban units ready to start reconstruction, we can accommodate more than 1 million population, or in this area, around this area. Now, this is the generic conceptual model of the proposed urban unit. And I emphasize here the word generic. This is not a picture of the future to be followed in exact dimensions and exact shapes. No, this is just the generic shape of what is proposed and parts in relation to each other. But we will see site-specific application of it in which things will change, will deform, will be reshaped according to the realities on site. If we go from left to right or from west to east, on the west we have the landfill area in which we propose, of course, everything is 1 kilometer wide, 1 kilometer wide. The landfill area into the sea is within 1.2 kilometers. This would mean not exceeding a depth in the sea of 6 to 7 meters. And only 60% of this area would be landfill, because we must have, we recommend to have canals and lakes. In this way, we can double the waterfront by 5 times, land waterfront. Then we have Al Rashid Road. Then we have the first segment of residential areas and their central services. Then we have possible wadis going south-north and Salah ad-Din Road and Salah ad-Din Road and another segment of residential and service areas and the proposed Eastern Road. West of the proposed new road to the east is the industrial areas, and east of it is the main agricultural area. Perhaps one of the most important features is the green spine running in the middle of the whole urban unit from east to west. And you can see that it is series of basins for rainwater harvesting and replenishing the underground water. On the extreme east, we have the anaerobic digester for recycling of water and organic materials. And we have the poultry industry. Now, if we take a section in the whole Gaza Strip from east to west, this is at the bottom, and some details of it are close up in the section, in the series of sections above it. So one of the important features on the west, you can see it here with the pointer, is a greenhouse with aquaculture, saline aquaculture. And this greenhouse would act also as a solar still, converting saline water vapor into potable water. So it acts to produce vegetables, fruits, fish, edible fish, and in addition to that, it also produces potable water, converting saline water into potable water. If we move east, this is a typical section of the whole residential areas in which there is integration of food production in the 3 dimensions in terraces, and we have the green. We have the green is fine, but in this particular section we have the solar collectors, photovoltaic, to generate energy. The top photo is for the rubble and 2 strategies in relation to it. Crushing in order to have recycling in relation to building materials, roads, etc. And we have the landfill, which I talked about. To the east, in addition to greenhouse agriculture, we have series of fresh vegetables and fruits, followed by vegetables to be boiled, followed by forest for timber. Why these 3 zones? Because each one of them require different degrees of recycling water. So you don't have to achieve the most costly recycling of water in all of them. It's according to the situation. And then poultry. Now, if we shift the scale from the urban unit to the neighborhood would be around 2,000 population. And it is flexible. The urban unit is not necessarily to be defined by boundaries or roads. The top left drawings show the place of the services of the neighborhoods. And the grid is related to the grouping unit that we will talk about later on. So for every 8 grouping units, that is a population of around 2,000, we have neighborhood services in the middle. The most important element in it is the local mosque. And the local mosque, according to Gazans, was not only for worship. It's a cultural center, a social center, educational center as well. Activities related to formal schools and activities related to short courses, languages, computer skills, etc. For the youngsters and the elders as well. It also has the primary school, which we will talk about later, and some shopping activities and cultural services. This is an axonometric view of the services of the neighborhood, that is the heart of the neighborhood. The mosque, the school, the mosque, you can see it here, the school here, open amphitheater, and different services, shopping and cultural. It can be reached by from any grouping unit within 5 minutes and without crossing streets. Now we come to the landfill area. The landfill area in relation to every urban unit, we said 1 kilometer wide on the original coastline and 1.2 kilometer into the sea. And we have two basic generic models. The one to the right is with sand beach, and that's why the water has to start very near the coast for the depth, not for the depth to be reasonable for swimming. And the one to the left is the urban corniche, in which you can have the water not coming to the original coastline. The most important result is that we can double the waterfront land, the length of the waterfront land 5 times. And because this is because the waterfront line would be irregular, undulating, and because of the islands and canals. The buildings are also not just one straight line. They are undulating, irregular in shape. So this can have another double of the waterfront land line. So in conclusion, we can double the number of buildings from the original situation before the war. We can double them 9 times. So if you have in 1 kilometer originally something like 100 buildings, they can become 900 buildings immediately on the new waterfront. These are close-up axonometric and section. What we recommend as the nature of the buildings, the character of the buildings, we recommend to have mid-rise buildings, not high-rise buildings, average 7 floors, but not constant 7 floors. We recommend to have from 3 stories to 11 stories. Why that? In order to have terraced buildings, and in these terraces, you will have green landscape, so you end up with a 3-dimensional landscape. This can result in a beautiful environment, perhaps more beautiful than anything in the Middle East, perhaps in the world. There must be voids in the large, relatively large masses, architectural masses for ventilation, which is shown in the section to the left bottom. And a very important element is the urban corniche, which is shown in the bottom left and is shown, this is the urban corniche, and shown here in the axonometry as well. And in the section, it indicates that even with private investment that needs a gated community, for example, we must still have a continuous public corniche so that you have always a connection, bondage between the new landfill areas and the mainland. These are samples of what could happen. These samples are from Al-Buhayrat city north of Jeddah, which I designed. And the importance of it is the main perspective in the bottom. It shows most buildings are mid-rise buildings, and very few in strategic points you can have landmark buildings, 20 to 30 floors. And even in these large buildings, you should have considerable voids for ventilation. And the other two perspectives show the possibility of what we consider, what we hope to have of a three-dimensional landscape. Now, this is the site-specific application of the proposed urban unit. We said 1 kilometer wide, but in reality, in this chosen urban unit, which was, I remind you, the middle unit of the 5 potential urban units in the first few maps. So instead of 1 kilometer, it becomes 1.2 kilometers. And instead of straight lines east-west, they are undulating, curved, according to what you see. This is because of the existing roads, and also in relation to certain wadis or tributaries, and also in relation to historic sites, which are these black squares that must be integrated into the new fabric. So this is what we consider to be the site-specific application of the proposed urban unit that can start immediately. I will not repeat what I said before. The green, well, the main elements, the green spine running from east to west, agriculture, and the main agricultural areas are to the east, with the 3 zones of agriculture that I talked about, and the industrial strip, the central services in here, and this grid are made of the residential grouping units that I will talk about later. And now we start talking about the generic grouping unit of 250 residents average. One of the common mistakes is to shift the design effort and scale from the design of a single building to the planning of the whole layout of the residential areas. But between the two, there is a very important scale which is called the grouping unit, a group of residential buildings in relation to a space in which they can gather, have social activities, cultural activities, etc. And a very important element that we propose is the vertical integration of activities. We all know the possibility of commercial activities under residential activities. But here in the Gazan situation, we propose another public activity floor in the first floor to have administrative activities, offices, and educational activities. We propose that you see the primary school in Gaza and in many Arab countries, the primary school is for the ages of 6 to 11. In my opinion, this is wrong, because you can have a child double the age, almost double the age of another child, using the same yard, etc. We propose the first 3 years of the primary school to be underneath the residential areas, but in a location with a open space and proper control. So this is the detailed section. The blue color is related to the educational spaces, half of the primary school, the first 3 years, and in relation to open air theater, and they have their proper areas, just like a normal school. In fact, even more generous open space than what they can have in average in formal primary schools. Parking garage is very important to be used also as shelter. And in the middle, there are wind-driven electric generators. This is because of the funnel effect in relation to these buildings. We'll talk about it later. And photovoltaic solar collectors at the top. This is in addition to food production in terraces of every residential unit. I'm sorry. This is an axonometric showing the grouping unit. You can see the photovoltaic solar collectors, the food production on terraces, and possibly small greenhouses, the open space, the open air amphitheater, the symbolic gates that can be real gates if necessary, and the wind-driven electric generators making use of the funnel effect between buildings. Now, this grouping unit is not rigid. It is flexible, it is adaptable, it can incorporate, it can integrate with existing buildings. The estimate of the destruction of buildings in Gaza ranges between 80% to 90%. And according to engineers, any building which is 40% destroyed is considered to be 100% destroyed. It cannot be restored. It is not safe to be restored. So the ratio of destroyed buildings is nearer to the 90%, perhaps more. But with the possibility of existing buildings, they can be incorporated into the grouping unit. These are studies to the left in relation to ventilation. One of the common mistakes is to put buildings perpendicular to wind direction. In this way, the first row of buildings would be ventilated. This is the top left corner. If you put, and this is what we did, buildings parallel to wind direction and with horizontal air catchers, you can have proper ventilation for every room in the residential unit. And it will give maximum privacy, which is a very important cultural aspect in Palestine and Gaza in general. You can still have solar penetration into the residential unit, residential rooms in this design as well. To the right, to the extreme right, there is the possibility of exchanging rooms between the residential units with the mutual agreement of the neighbors. There is also, this is in terms of ownership and the size of the residential unit and the flexibility of the residential unit. Another flexibility is in the furniture, and part of the living room can become sleeping quarters with proper privacy. The gate, symbolic gate of the grouping unit, and with the possibility of paintings, advertisement of cultural activities, etc. And these paintings can be in relation to, can be made by children, can be made by adults. It makes the place more intimate, expressing its residents. And we have the wind-driven electric generators I talked about before, and of course the open amphitheater. These are different plans from the layout, top left corner, ground floor, below it, then the parking garage, the basement, which can be used also as shelter, and the first floor, then, I'm sorry, then the other floors. I think we don't have time for the details, but it shows the different possibilities that, and in every residential unit, you can have proper ventilation and proper solar penetration possibility as well. Different sizes and a lot of flexibility, as I said. Then we come to the quantitative information. I must say, Ahmadullah made all of this, and he did a great job and a lot of effort. The quantitative information related to our proposed grouping unit and in relation to urban samples of the existing situation before the war. And I think it is better to look at the conclusion. This is the conclusion. We took an area made of our proposed urban units, top left corner, and then we had 3 samples of urban situation in Gaza before the war. To the right, we have the squatter settlements, and they are not small area. They are in huge areas of Gaza before the war. And then we have the regular or formal places in the middle, following municipality rules. And then we have at the left the encroachment on agricultural areas, but as it could happen in future if it continues. The situation before the war had less buildings than what is shown here, but we had to complete the picture of what could happen if it continues. So the general conclusion of all of this is that the previous situation has more floor areas than our proposed grouping units. In terms of floor areas are around 10 to 15%. But you can notice clearly that the ratio of open spaces in our proposal is far, far more logical, more rational, more needed than the open spaces in the 3 urban samples. In fact, the lack of open spaces in the 3 urban samples is a clear indication of the oppression practiced on the Gazans before the war for decades. Now, if you add to all of what I said, that we can save half of the primary schools because of accommodating the first 3 years in the grouping unit, and the land saved in this regard, and if you make the calculation, you would find that our proposal is even more 10 to 15% floor areas than the existing situation before the war. In conclusion, the cost of the residential unit can be reduced by 50% with our proposal. Shopping, office spaces, half of the primary school, if you add this all together, you can reach a cost of the residential unit 50% less. These are the calculations. Now, we shift to the present situation, very tragic situation of tents. And I think you all have seen the flooding, the storms, and the tents are very fragile. So what can we do about that? In our opinion, we must link the temporary situation to the future situation. So first, there are 4 basic construction systems. Prefabrication to the left, then precast, then cast in place, but with a GRP formwork, which has this dashed frame on it, and then manual formwork. We recommend to avoid prefabrication as much as possible. maybe in certain emergency situation related to clinics, to health facilities, but even in that, not the full hospital. But why we recommend avoiding prefabricated systems, although they may seem to be the logical answer to an emergency situation and you want to construct things in a hurry, urgently. First of all, it's not as fast as it seems. If you calculate the full system, not only the assembly on the site, if you calculate the full system of prefabrication from the factory to the site, it is not that fast. More important is that the economy, if you go to prefabricated systems, then most of the economy would operate outside Jeddah, and this would be a huge loss. We recommend the whole economy of construction to be inside Gaza, to generate jobs, even for the profit makers of small scale contractors, etc., to be inside Gaza. This can help re-establish the economy of Gaza and generate jobs. But we don't recommend also to go to the extreme manual formwork cast in place, the extreme right, because then you don't have enough quality control. So the optimum we recommend is cast in place, but using GRP metal or GRP formwork. Now, if we go to this system, then the other recommendation is not the flat slab with drop beams or just flat slabs. There are already studies and built-in reality. The top left corner, if you have a curvature in the roof, still with a flat floor, you can reduce steel reinforcement. They made a calculation that they can reduce it by 80%. In our case, it's less sophisticated, but still with a lot of savings if you can have this curvature, volts and groined volts. It's not semicircular volt. It's not even 1/3 of a circle. It's just a gentle curvature. This can reduce steel reinforcement a lot, being more economically efficient. The top right hand corner, it has another advantage, which is climatic. The warm air would collect at the top, and you can get rid of it by exhaustion or suction fans. So you can have a climatic advantage in relation to these volts and groin volts. Now, with that in mind, the scaffolds or the modular formwork of the molds of the buildings to be constructed, these formwork molds can replace the roof of the tents, and it can be assembled manually. In addition to styrofoam and canvas in relation to openings. And for the walls, we can have the interlocking.
No, I'm just about reached the same. It's about an hour, isn't it?
Okay, I'm about finished. Interlocking unbacked earth blocks made with hand press. These can be reassembled without mortar for the future buildings. In other words, we are linking the temporary situation to the permanent buildings to be constructed. Last thing is the importance of public art. This is a design of a memorial Actually, it was for the Egyptian martyrs in Palestine. And in that memorial, I avoided everything related to wars. I concentrated on the basic idea of love of Jerusalem, love of Palestine, a heart shape, arrow pointing to the sky and pointing towards Jerusalem, and the pyramid is deformed into this heart shape. That's all. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Farahat and Architect Farahat, for this insightful and inspiring presentation. Your work reminds us that rebuilding Gaza is not only about architecture, but about creating a sustainable and dignified future for its people. We will now move to the discussion part of our session. I would like to begin with a few questions to explore some of the ideas you have shared with us, and then we will also welcome questions from participants. And I guess we would be done in half an hour from now. Is that okay? Let me start with question 1. Reconstruction vision. From your perspective, what are the 3 most critical principles that should guide the sustainable rebuilding of Gaza to ensure that reconstruction leads to long-term resilience rather than short-term fixes?
In my opinion, what was mentioned in the objectives, but the 3 most important are decentralization, self-reliance, and ecological planning. This is in addition to other things like job generation, integrated economy, etc. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Second question about environmental sustainability. Gaza faces severe constraints in terms of energy, water, and land availability. How can sustainable architecture and urban design help address these challenges while supporting a growing population?
This is what we proposed, being aware of this. So every step in the planning and design process and the construction process is environmentally conscious, is energy conscious, to have the optimum, the most optimum possible in all of these steps. They must be considered in every step, environmental aspects, energy aspects, as well as socio-cultural aspects.
Yeah. I see a question from Dr. Hassan Waked, and then I will come back to other questions for you. So, Dr. Hassan, please go ahead with your question.
No, it's not just a question. I think we have to appreciate such effort, which is integrated with all aspects, and all these details has been done with great effort. We appreciate that, and the initiative of having such effort for the Gazan people. I think it's really something you have. I think God will bless you, Dr. Abdelmohsen. I agree with you that high-rise building is the most important, related to the condensed and low-rise, and the nostalgia of having, when people may say that we'd like to come back to our homes, this is something has to be considered and to give plan for that. Only one issue that I don't know if it is important, that we have to give a land for or design or consider a plan for the defense, the self-defense for armies. Something furthermore than what you've done about no concentration, things like that. But I think that we have to consider that later on, maybe we'll take a lesson that we have to protect such things by power and army as well. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you, Dr. Hassan. Of course, a very important point. We don't know when another crazy people will start another war. And being conscious of that in the planning dimension, the most important response is decentralization. So 1 kilometer urban unit, which is almost self-sufficient. Self-sufficiency is impossible in any place in the world, including USA. But self-reliance is possible. But that is let us say, 90% self-sufficiency. That is to say, agriculture, industry, housing, education, all services. Now, in relation to wars, if every urban unit, as we are proposing, would have its own, first of all, a natural surface drainage, meaning replenishing underground water. So you have your underground water resource. And then you have saline water desalination by conventional plants, and with solar distillation, which is another decentralized system for obtaining water. This would mean that bombing, like I have to say that some of the plans in relation to Gaza of the future made a proposal of 2 desalination plants for all of Gaza Strip, and 2 generating electricity plants for all of Gaza Strip. This would mean that with 2-3 bombs, you can paralyze Gaza Strip again. In our proposal, for every 1 kilometer, you would have a desalination plant, electricity plant, in addition to solar distillation and photovoltaic solar collectors and wind generators. So with this decentralization, you have considerable protection against the possible destruction of the future. You cannot prevent it altogether. And our construction system with vaults and and groin vaults, I think the destruction of buildings would be minimized. It can still happen, of course. There is no way, but we can minimize the destruction. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Abdelmohsen. There is a question in the chat. How does one recognize urgency and the need to give a sense of citizen participation and consultation? You have partly replied through an emphasis on local employment and local tradesmanship.
Yeah,
You
you are correct, but I think he may mean, the question may mean which areas to be constructed first, the priority. So in our situation, what we propose is that in the areas with least rubble, this is the logical places to go for. But we must take care of the historic sites to be re-established, restored, the potential agricultural areas, the wadis. There are 2 things that must be highly respected in any effort, actually all over the world: the natural environment and the historic areas. These 2, if destroyed or compromised, you lose a lot. You lose a lot. So we have to consider these 2. But the question, I feel, is also in relation to land ownership, because what we are proposing as if everything is publicly owned. There are private ownerships that have to be considered and must be compensated. But in my opinion, in our opinion, the public good should supersede the private aspects without doing injustice to the private owners. They should be compensated.
Thank you. I see a hand from Dr. Nagia.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Abdelmohsen, for the presentation, and Ahmad-Ullah for all the effort you've put into it. I just would like to mention that the population of Gaza includes not only a Muslim population, but a Christian population. And I understood that there were also some Jewish population there. And if you remember, at the beginning of this war, a very important historic church that was maybe the third built in the world was bombarded by the attackers, and there were martyrs there. It's so I hope that in the future, and there were many mosques that were bombarded and hit during the raids, as well as churches. So in the reconstruction, I hope that there will be also reconstruction of all the places of worship that need to be there. The other thing regarding the memorial for the martyrs, actually, I've been working and presenting another alternative that could be the Gaza story and Martyrs Memorial. Inshallah, hopefully that another chance I can present it, because I did present it in the Archaeological Union, Arab Archaeological Union Convention last November. And it could be integrated with Dr. Abdelmohsen and Ahmad-Ullah have presented. And it's located across the Rashid Road near the seashore. And it has two entrances, from the land and from the sea, like a landmark or a lighthouse. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nagia.
Yeah.
Well,
of course, churches, especially historic churches, are part of the historic sites and must be restored and reestablished. And my information is that one of them is something like 1,000 years old. Or you correct me. So definitely, this is a very, very valuable historic site that must be established, but also contemporary churches to present-day Christian Palestinians. Some people, when I was in the USA, some people didn't know that there are Christian Palestinians and Jewish Palestinians who are willing to live in peace, in coexistence with the rest of the Palestinians. Thank you.
I have another question about cultural identity. Actually, reconstruction projects often risk losing the cultural identity and social fabric of communities. How can architecture integrate local culture, traditions, and social life into modern, sustainable urban design?
Yeah, this is a very good question. It was answered partly, but I want to elaborate more on it. Of course, historic sites are perhaps the most important element of the built environment in relation to cultural identity. The other thing is in Gaza, there is always the need for privacy in the residential unit. So we try to respond to that in the design of the residential unit. No neighbor is overlooking another neighbor, unlike what was occurring before the war. And again, before the war, the situation was a lot of oppression, a lot of need for building on the land. So privacy between neighbors is not dealt with in a proper way. In our proposal, it is dealt with in a proper way. There is also the element of social gathering, the open space related to every grouping unit and the open amphitheater. This is not only for the children and their school, but also for the whole community to gather for entertainment, for cultural activities, etc. Of course, we are also open to any specific localized needs. Yani some people may think that they need a certain facility to be built, and it can be accommodated in the grouping unit when real construction occur. But this is very important. Another element, by the way, is the extended family, the possibility of the extended family. It used to be a very, very important part in the residential environment of Gaza. before the war. Now it is decreasing, but still important. Extended family, it means that when the father, the nuclear family is the father, mother, and children. Now, when the children grow up, sometimes their residential unit is attached to the parents, and sometimes even the cousins. So in the grouping unit, it is possible to have a specific extended family apartment building related to how you deal with the staircase and the elevator and how you deal with each floor. So in other words, you can have an entity with a private entrance related to let us say five residential units related to some extended family, or you can have it in relation to 10 or 15. So according to the specific needs. Of course, a lot of work, organizational work, has to be done. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I see a hand from Ahmadullah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, very low.
I'll raise my voice. Okay. Mr. Martin Spencer was asking about how citizenship, how citizens can participate. Am I heard now? Is my voice clear?
Ahmadullah, I suggest that you write your question or your comment in the chat because actually the volume is very low.
Raise your voice, Ahmadullah, please.
I'm trying to raise my voice. Is it now heard? Is it now heard?
Raise more, as much as you can.
Okay, I'll enter through the mobile. Okay, someone else can take my chance, and then I'll enter through my mobile.
Yeah, while you are writing your comment in the chat, I have another question about governance and implementation. Many reconstruction efforts fail not because of lack of ideas, but because of governance and coordination challenges. What kind of institutional framework or international cooperation would be needed to implement such sustainable plans?
Well, to be honest with you, this is a very important area. And as you said, it can make great projects succeed or fail. There is a need for a lot of effort in this regard. But we claim that with our approach of decentralization, of making the urban unit only for around 100 to 150,000 population, you can accommodate, you can facilitate governance far easier than if you, let us say, reconstruct Gaza City as a whole for 1 million population. It may be a personal opinion that the smaller the urban unit is, the more potential for successful governance. I would say for even a democratic society. With smaller urban units, the smaller the scale, you can have more immediate interaction between the population and their representatives. So governance is extremely important. It needs a lot of work in its own terms, but we claim that in our proposal, we are facilitating this to succeed.
Thank you. I see Ahmadullah is back. Do you want to speak or still same voice issue?
Yes, I'm ready. If you can hear me now.
Yes, now we hear you.
Yes. Yes. Okay. I wanted to respond to the nice remark of Mr. Martin Spencer about the citizen participation and consultation in this rebuilding process. Well, what I believe is that we need a wider rebuilding and more serious for the Palestinian society, rebuilding of the society. And one of its aspects is the physical rebuilding of the cities and buildings. the Palestinian society needs to maybe to have stronger NGOs and to have municipality. I believe municipality parliaments, local parliaments of each municipality, each town or village, so that you have strong connection between people and decision makers. So I think it's a large challenge, and it needs more efforts and researches, and we didn't. I believe that we don't have enough information to cover it, and we don't have enough relations with Palestinian local decision makers or influential people who can help in this. It's a big challenge, and it needs efforts from all people who have interest in this, whether inside Palestine or people loving Palestine from outside. Thank you.
Thank you very much. One last question on my side. Could Gaza's reconstruction become an opportunity to create one of the most innovative sustainable urban models in the Middle East? And if so, what would be the first steps to move in that direction?
Well, this is what we tried. What we tried is to accommodate what we feel is the most up-to-date possibilities in the beginning of the second quarter of the 21st century, how cities should be. Especially from the 70s of the last century, there is a movement towards sustainability, towards decentralization, avoiding what can be called savage capitalism that leads to highly centralized systems with highly centralized profit makers, etc., etc. But disregarding the ideological aspects, which has some importance, but in human terms, in actual human terms, decentralization, but meaningful decentralization in terms of energy, in terms of food, in terms of water, in terms of housing, if this can occur, but with integration that can lead to synergy. The whole is more effective than the sum of its parts. If this can happen, a lot of it can open the door also to future innovations, not only what we know today, but also what can happen in future. The more decentralized, the more flexible you can accommodate new ideas along the way. Thank you.
We have a hand from Spencer, I guess.
Yes, if I may say on the question, how does a plan like this link into the actual administration of Gaza? And there's a key principle behind that, which is that the Gazan people should be empowered and responsible for themselves. And all this planning that went on last year for the Arab plan for Gaza conceived of Palestinian technocratic ministries. And the people who have assumed that role since the 13th of November or whatever, the 16 so-called potential ministers responsible for each sector of practical life, and they're not politicians, they are technocrats, they cannot even get into Gaza at present. They are blocked in Egypt, and they are meant to be on the ground in Gaza. And that that need was expressed as a priority last week during our seminar with a key colleague from within Israel who said that was one of the points we should fight for now, is allowing the so-called Palestinian government to get onto the ground in Gaza. At present, they're blocked outside. And Britain is financing the communications and infrastructure so that they can get into Gaza and start working on the ground in Gaza as ministries.
Yeah, I agree completely. I agree completely with every word said by Martin. And of course, a lot of I should say that it's not a matter of charity. It's not a matter of kindness to the Palestinian people. It's a matter of right, human right, basic human rights. A lot of basic human rights are deprived from the Gazans. And it should go all the way, including what Spencer and what Ahmad-Ullah also mentioned, that the Gazans should have the possibility of voting on every step, because what we proposed here has a lot to deal with public ownership and private ownership, and how to compensate private owners, even widening the road, widening the existing roads of Al-Rashid and Salah ad-Din. This would mean taking land properties of private citizens. So there has to be some voting on that. So any step we must have a voting on that, and we must have a representation of the Palestinian people. But at the same time, we must have plans in which reconstruction can start immediately without compromising quality. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Afaf Badran.
Yes, thank you very much. First, I want to commend the initiative and the effort of Dr. Abdelmohsen and Ahmad-Ullah. As an architect, I understand the effort that has been put here. So I have two questions. The first question is about those people who have just, been in a trauma and still are. They will need a lot of training before they can start working on construction, because I'm in a construction site at the moment, and I know that there is a lot of work that needs expertise, and most of the people who are there do not have the right expertise at the moment. So this is one thing I'm raising. The other thing I wanted to mention is, how can this proposal reach the non-biased authorities who can look into it and see the good sides and not stick to Kushner's plan? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Well, on trauma, existing trauma and training, of course, a lot of work has to be done by specialists in this regard. But in our opinion, things related to hand press machines that can be operated manually, this can be widespread to everyone, and especially for young people. If Israel allows this hand press machines to enter Gaza, they are considerably cheap, considerably small in size, very practical. This can start almost immediately, and interlocking unbaked earth blocks. This is the least that can happen. Of course, there is a need for more skilled labor, And there are already some skilled labor and skilled small scale contractors in Gaza. They need more organization. And this is the challenge of the Palestinian committee that was assigned a few months ago. This is all what we can hope for. We claim that with our proposal of the grouping unit, including residential, office space, educational space, and shopping activities, you can have the maximum possible of societal participation in deciding how the future should be. It means a lot of interaction, even at the scale of the grouping unit, 250 residents. All of these are very important remarks and should be addressed. As the second point about how these proposals can reach authorities and the tragic, actually, the Kushner plan is completely unprofessional, apart from the ill intentions of stealing the waterfront and the natural gas, which was expressed in many ways, implicitly and explicitly, but it is completely unprofessional. And what I can do, what Ahmad-Ullah and I can do, is to publicize our proposals in hope that some authorities somewhere will take at least some of our ideas. And this is what we can do. I tried to reach the committee members and announce to them about this presentation, and inshallah, God willing, we will publish our proposals in the public media. It can be available to everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Abdelmohsen. Actually, it seems like John Bond says you should make the project available to Tony Blair, so he may help in this direction. I think we reached the time, but I think we can have a last question from Christoph Sprang. Very short question, please.
Thank you. I'm very impressed by your presentation. I also wrote into the chat, expropriation for landowners. I come from a very small country, so that every piece of land is tiny. So there's a little bit of, not a fair, but a comparison with Gaza and Switzerland. So expropriation is a sensitive issue and could be, causing a lot of hurdles, even legally, legal battles. So would you consider a mix of public and private land ownership in the proposal, so as not to get a whole mass of needless resistance? Thank you.
Thank you. A very important point, and I'm aware of the excellent situation in Switzerland, in which, as far as I know, you can have direct democracy. Of even a small community can vote directly about what should happen, and the public officials have to abide by that. In the case of Gaza, definitely I want public participation. I want respect for private ownership. I want encouragement of private investments. All of that should happen. These are a matter of maybe human rights, considered to be part of human rights. But at the same time, there are also overriding human rights related to the society as a whole. The most important thing is not to expropriate private property for the investment of large investors, billionaires, and such things. This what must be avoided, whether the big investor is Palestinian or not Palestinian. The problems we have, the challenges we have, is that most of the private properties are exactly in the same place, in the same spots of the rebels. So if we act on only on private property respect, we will have two problems. That number one, we have to clear all the rebels in order to rebuild in the exact private property locations. This is problem number one. Problem number two is that you will have to rebuild exactly what was built before, which was in many cases inappropriate. Privacy is not proper, open spaces is not proper, ventilation is not proper. So all of that leads to what can happen in optimum design and planning, which we are trying to do. But the private property owners must be compensated fairly. So there is a lot of organizational work, a lot of governance that should occur in this regard, but very important, yeah.
Thank you again to our speakers and to everyone who joined us today for this meaningful discussion. As we come to the end of the session, I would like to express our sincere gratitude to Professor Dr. Abdelmohsen Farahat and architect Ahmad-Ullah Farahat for sharing their inspiring vision and thoughtful insights on the sustainable rebuilding of Gaza. What we have heard today reminds us that reconstruction is not only about restoring buildings, but about restoring communities, dignity, and hope. Sustainable rebuilding must integrate environmental responsibility, cultural identity, and social and economic viability while placing people and their well-being at the center of the process. The ideas presented today invite us to think beyond emergency reconstruction and to consider how Gaza could become a model for resilient, sustainable, and human-centered urban development. On behalf of the Middle East Group of Initiatives of Change, I would like to thank all participants for joining this conversation and contributing to a dialogue that seeks constructive and forward-looking solutions. We hope this discussion will inspire further collaboration and reflection on how architecture, planning, and collective commitment can help build a more sustainable and peaceful future. And last question to Dr. Abdelmohsen, are we authorized to share the presentation with those who request it?
Sure.
And also the link for the recording?
Yes, of course. And this is the whole aim of, as Dr.
Perfect.
Afaf mentioned, how to reach not only the authorized people, but the whole public, to raise awareness of what can happen in the most possible optimum way.
Perfect. So thank you all for your participation and enjoy your weekend.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for attending. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Many thanks. Many thanks.